presentation is completed, we'll begin the question and answer portion, during which participant will ask their question aloud. Chat feature has been disabled for this meeting, so we will not be taking written question. If you are on the phone, please hold your question to the end. We'll have instruction on how to ask question at the conclusion of the presentation. We also encourage you to submit your comments today meeting using online survey, online feedback form, or phone call. Again, we will have addresses for you at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, I would like to introduce from Supervisor Office, Patricia and Devin Fur. If you guys like to make any opening remarks before we begin. From the Supervisor Office.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we're just appreciative of you guys taking the time out of your evening to present this information for the public. So thanks as always, and we're looking forward to learning more.
Thank you, Devin. I would like to introduce our first presenter from the Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, Andy Beecher, who is the Assistant Transportation and Land Use Director for Northern Fairfax County. Next, I'll introduce our other presenter, Hannah Kackner, Active Transportation Planner with Fairfax County Department of Transportation, Active Transportation Section. Andy from VDOT will begin with a presentation on VDOT repaving program. Afterward, Hannah from FCDOT will present slide on FCDOT proposed restriping project as a part of 2024 repaving program. This will include any crosswalks or bike lanes. FCDOT is proposing to add through 2024 repaving program. With that, I'll turn it over Andy. Andy,
all right. Well, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And please let me know if you all can see my screen.
I can see it.
All right. Well, thank you all again. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and present the 2024 paving plan to you all tonight. I'll go ahead and just jump right into the agenda. So I'm going to start off with some background information about the Northern Virginia District and the paving program in general. Then review the upcoming 2024 paving budget, as well as the paving plan. And we'll wrap up by going over some of the helpful links and contact information that you all have at your disposal should you have any questions or inquiries. So some of you might be familiar when we talk about our roadway inventory, we typically discuss it in terms of lane miles. Overall, you can see how Northern Virginia compares to districts from around the rest of the state in size and number of lane miles. In Northern Virginia, we have about 14,200 lane miles. So if we break that number down by the 4 counties that are within the Northern Virginia district, there's a little over 50% of the lane miles that are in Fairfax County alone, with 25% in Loudoun County, 22% in Prince William, and about 2% in Arlington, keeping in mind that Arlington maintains their own secondary roads. In general, for the paving program, while the construction period occurs during the warmer months from April to about October, November timeframe, the planning that goes into that is essentially year-round. So starting in the spring, data is gathered for the next calendar year. Then later in the summer and fall, that data is reviewed, schedules and contracts are prepared, and then advertised for bids, and prior year contracts are closed out. Finally, in the winter timeframe, bids are received and evaluated, contracts are executed, and then ultimately notice to proceed is given to the contractors. So we do often get asked how our roads are selected for paving. There is some method to the madness. Primarily, we look at the pavement conditions of that particular roadway using specific measurements from the field. However, in the process of doing that, we do also consider other factors such as the roadway traffic volumes. So you can imagine with higher volume roadways, that will cause a roadway to deteriorate quicker. We look to avoid locations with upcoming roadway projects or underground utility projects where the roadway could ultimately get torn up shortly after any repaving would occur. We do often group projects for economies of scale to try and minimize mobilization costs and other costs. And that could include repaving an entire neighborhood. Sometimes, say if we're getting towards the end of a season, we may decide just to repave some of the main roads within a neighborhood as opposed to the entire neighborhood, so that we at least get those out of the way, and then in the following season, we can come back and have a leg up to getting the remaining streets within the neighborhood completed. And then lastly, we do also rely heavily on the feedback that we get from our maintenance crews who are out in the field and seeing the condition of the roadways on a daily basis. So another question that we get asked is how we go about collecting the data that I spoke about and that we use in determining what to repave. And we do it through the use of a vehicle such as the one that is pictured on this slide. And so it is called the Automatic Road Analyzer, or ARAN. And the types of data that this particular vehicle collects includes pavement distress, roughness, texture, and rutting. And this includes digital scanning, measurements, digital video and imagery, as well as GPS information. All of that is used to give a real accurate picture of the condition of each and every roadway that we review. So how often do we do this? It's done on an annual basis for interstate primary and high volume secondary roads. And when we say high volume, that means average annual daily traffic that is above 3,500 vehicles per day. Then for low volume secondary roads, which have a volume less than 3,500 vehicles per day, that is done about once every 5 years. And that is mainly due to the fact that there are so many low volume secondary roads. And it takes a significant amount of time to review all of those roads. But essentially we have 100% of all of the low volume secondary roads reviewed within 5 years. So getting into the pavement ratings themselves, these are based on what is called the Critical Condition Index, or CCI. And so any pavement with a rating that is below 60 on the CCI scale is considered poor or very poor. If it is above 60, it's anywhere from fair to excellent. And in all of our roads, we strive to achieve a CCI of 60 or greater. That is our target for each individual roadway's rating. Now, as an agency, VDOT does have targets for each of its districts with respect to pavement sufficiency. And that is depending on the classification of the roadway. So for an interstate, the target is about 82% of all roadways having a CCI above 60. High volume primary roads, the target is also 82%. For low volume primaries, the target is 75%. High volume secondaries is again 82, and then low volume secondaries is 60%. In Northern Virginia, for 2023, you can see in the highlighted box, we met the targets for almost all of the different classifications of roadway, with the exception of the high volume secondaries. Now that was despite our best efforts, of course, but we don't always have enough funding to reach all of the roadways that we'd like to. And so in this case, we missed the mark ever so slightly, but we'll continue to push to try and meet all of our targets as we continue to move forward with our paving program. Here in this slide, you can see a snapshot of the pavement conditions. This is from 2023. And on the side, there's a legend there. You can see that blue is excellent, green is good, yellow is fair, magenta is poor, red is very poor, and then gray is not rated. And so from this, you get an idea of just how many roads we have to evaluate and maintain, but also that we still have plenty of work ahead of us to keep ahead of the curve as far as maintaining those roads. Now, when it comes to the different types of pavement treatments, there are different avenues that we can take depending on the condition of the roadway. In some cases, our staff may determine that a preventative treatment, such as a slurry seal or latex treatment, may be appropriate if the roadway is not quite in need of full repaving, but it is showing some wear and tear. We can use that type of treatment. Then we also have the common repaving operations using the plant mix, corrective or restorative maintenance types of treatments. The difference between those two is with corrective, we'll mill about 2 inches and then overlay back that same 2 inches of surface mix asphalt. And then with restorative, we go a little bit deeper, up to 4 inches, overlaying the surface and intermediate mix asphalts. And then finally, if we have a roadway that's in pretty rough shape, there may be a need to do something more significant. In that case, we might do a full depth reclamation. We actually excavate the existing pavement and then stabilize and then add back the intermediate and surface mix asphalt. I will say with that last one, that is pretty rare. We, of course, try and keep our roadways in good enough condition that we don't get to that point. But there are some instances where, you might get surprised by the condition of the pavement, and that's when we would employ that technique. So moving on then to the paving budget. On this table, you can see for Northern Virginia, our budget for about the last 5 years, and then for 2024. And while the budget is higher this year than it has been the last few years, unfortunately, the cost per mile has also gone up in that time frame. So what that means in turn is that the number of lane miles that we're able to do is actually less. Now, with that said, we will continue to target those areas of need, focusing a lot on the secondary roads, but also tending to the needs of the primary and interstate roadways as well. Okay, on this next slide, you can see a snapshot of the 2024 paving status map. And this is the actual map that shows you what roadways we're targeting for this upcoming paving season and at what stage those roadways are in. So if the work is scheduled and has not yet started, that is in red. If it's in progress, it's in green. And then if it's completed, and there are a couple that are actually already completed, they may have been carryover from last year, you'll see those in blue. So I am going to do a live demonstration of this towards the end of my presentation, but right now I just wanted to share with you a snapshot of what that looks like. Okay, so when it comes to pavement marking and striping, the way that our contracts are set up, we typically replace in kind the existing striping. So what you see now will be the same for the most part afterwards. Occasionally, though, we are able to make some minor adjustments during repaving. But the more elaborate type changes that you might see for something like bike lanes new crosswalks or road diets, if you're familiar with those require significant prior planning and coordination between VDOT and Fairfax County Department of Transportation. So if one of these types of significant changes is requested on a road that is scheduled for repaving, what we'll do is in most cases, we'll defer that repaving work to a future year so that we give ourselves time to coordinate and plan accordingly and get the proper analyses done so that in the next paving cycle, we're able to go ahead and implement that revised striping. And I think Hannah will discuss some of the more specifics related to initiatives that might be occurring in this particular district of the county. On my concluding slide here, I just wanted to share how the public can reach out to VDOT for more routine requests related to whether it's repaving or just a basic maintenance type issue. So I've got here online the web address for MyVDOT, my.vdot.virginia.gov. You can go to that or call 1-800-4ROAD. That's 1-800-367-7623. And with that, that concludes the formal part of my presentation. Before I turn the floor over to Hannah, I'm just going to go ahead and briefly walk you through the 2024 paving status map, as I had mentioned. So if you bear with me. Oh, and by the way, here is my VDOT. If you wanted to report an issue to us, you can see the different categories of things that you can report out to us, and that'll get sent to our customer service and routed to the right folks. But the status map you can see here, this is what I've pulled up off of virginiaroads.org, and I've kind of focused in on the Providence district area of the county. You can see Tyson's Corner here. We've got the Beltway as well as I-66, and you can see some of the communities and neighborhoods that are scheduled for repaving. Again, it's an interactive GIS map, so I can zoom in and look closely to see what specific roads are being targeted. You can also go over to the side here, and there's different layers and base maps. If it would be helpful to adjust that, you can do that just by clicking on these different identified base maps. All right, so that's basically what I wanted to share with you all tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and turn the floor over to Hannah.
Great. Thanks, Andy. All right, can everyone see my screen here?
Yes.
All clear.
Okay. Okay, so at this point, I'll just move on to FCDOT's proposed striping modifications as part of the 2024 repaving program. So we'll just start off with a little bit of background on the repaving and restriping program in Fairfax County. So each year we collaborate with VDOT to provide new striping improvements on our roadways, typically in the form of crosswalks and bike lanes. And we start off that process by reviewing VDOT's draft repaving list and identify roadways within that list that VDOT plans to repave that could also be good candidates for new crosswalks and or bike lanes. We are limited to roadway segments that VDOT is already repaving, so any proposed crosswalks or bike lanes must fall within the area that VDOT is already planning to repave. Additionally, the scope of this project on FCDOT's end really does not extend beyond adding striping to the roadway, so improvements like protected bike lanes are not something that we're able to do through this project. A major reason that we do this is to repurpose some underutilized road space. Many of our roads here in Fairfax County were built with much wider travel lanes than are really necessary, or with too many travel lanes, which can lead to some safety issues like speeding or inattentive driving. And the repaving program allows us to sort of bring down the lane sizes to a more appropriate size by adding improvements like bike lanes, which make the road appear more narrow and improve safety for all users at relatively little cost. Typically, the traffic capacity at signals is maintained, and we'll try to maintain legal on-street parking where space allows. And adding bike lanes through repaving also aids in implementation of our planned bicycle network. So as you can see from this photo, you get a really nice traffic calming effect through adding bike lanes, as we did here on Annandale Road through the repaving program. And with that additional striping there, drivers are just given a visual impression that the roadway width has been reduced, which has been shown to slow vehicle speeds. These are the three types of on-street bicycle facilities that you'll see in Fairfax County. We typically don't add sharrows anymore and are moving away from those standard bike lanes with the goal of adding as many buffered bike lanes as we can to give cyclists some additional separation between themselves and the vehicle lane, which ends up providing a more comfortable experience for cyclists. And although this program only allows us to stripe bike lanes, adding that buffer just gives us some space to have the option in the future to protect that bike lane by adding physical barriers through other projects. But again, not something that's done through this project, but just gives us the option of doing that in the future. This diagram just shows a categorization of the four types of cyclists we typically see. And while we're not able to build trails or protected bike lanes through the repaving program, we are trying to provide as many buffered bike lanes as possible to try and appeal to that interested but concerned group you see here, which is where most people have been found to fall. And so these are just a few benefits of adding bicycle infrastructure. As you can see, there are benefits to all roadway users here and not just cyclists. And again, they just provide a nice traffic calming effect by making the roadway appear much narrower to drivers. So moving on to our proposed striping modifications in Providence District. First up, we have a proposed bike lane project on Anderson Road between Birdwood Avenue and McGarrity Road here. Currently, this segment of Anderson Road has two very wide vehicle lanes with some on-street parking on both sides and then sidewalks on both sides. And then you have some various residential and commercial development of different densities in this area. So what we're proposing is adding buffered bike lanes to the segment by repurposing either one or two parking lanes per the countywide master bicycle plan. Whether or not we purpose one or two parking lanes will depend largely on community feedback. And we did perform a parking utilization study, which will be linked in our feedback survey, that found that there was really only one stretch of heavily used parking on the northern end of the street in red here. And that on-street parking was generally underused between Culture Drive and McGarrity Road up here. So the options that everyone will be able to vote on through our survey, which again will be linked at the end of this presentation and is also available on our repaving website, are to repave the road as is, just leave everything the same, don't add any bike lanes. And then there's also the option of adding a bike lane only in the uphill direction, which would retain the parking bay on the northbound side of the road. Or we can add buffered bike lanes along both segments, or along both sides of this road, which would repurpose all of the street parking along this segment. However, some of that parking at the northern end of the roadway could be brought back with the eventual redevelopment of the Commons of McLean. Unrelated to the repaving program, but we're also proposing to add a capital bike share station on Anderson Road near Dartford Drive at the location pictured here in red. This station would be adjacent to the condos, townhouses, and shopping center over here. And again, this is not something that is being proposed through repaving, but we still wanted to take the opportunity to gauge the community's opinion on adding this bike share station to our survey. So if you have paving related comments, including draining issues, missing signage, signal repair, walkway repair, and site distance issues related to vegetation overgrowth, those should be submitted to VDOT through the My VDOT portal, which is linked here. If you'd like to request road repairs, please follow the I Need a Road Repaired link on the VDOT portal or call 1-800-4ROAD. We also have the project webpage linked here, which has our survey, proposed project scopes, tonight's presentation, and additional information about the repaving program. And we welcome any and all feedback and are accepting comments until April 22nd. And all of this feedback will be collected and passed along to Supervisor Palchik. And so, as I mentioned, we'll be collecting feedback for the next 2 weeks. This year, in addition to accepting any feedback over the phone and by mail, we're also accepting feedback through a platform called Public Input. So at this link you see on the screen, publicinput.com/R7568, you'll be able to answer questions about your preferences with regard to how Anderson Road will be restriped, as well as a question on whether or not you are supportive of adding the Capital Bike Share Station on Anderson Road that I also mentioned. There's also a free-form text box at the end of the survey, in which you'll have the option to just add any additional feedback you might have for us on either of these proposals. So with that, we'll move on to the question and answer portion. You can ask questions of either Andy or myself. And Manish, would you like to give the instructions on that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Hannah and Andy, for your nice presentation. We will now take questions and comment from attendee on both presentation. You may either ask your question verbally by raising your hand located at the top of your screen next to the 3 dots. I will enable your microphone and call on you to ask your question. Please unmute yourself when your name is called and ask your question or provide your comments. Please mute yourself after you have asked your question. Or if you are on the phone, press *5 to raise your hand. And when you are called upon by your phone number, press *6 to unmute. After you're done, press *6 again to mute yourself. Attendee, please be patient as our callers are listening to system instruction through their phone to participate. We will not taking any question via chat tonight. So yeah, floor is open. Raise your hand, then I'll unmute you guys.
Yeah, we can start.
Yeah, now I can see one hand from Donald. I'm going to unmute. Let me. Yes, yeah, Donald, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
So I sort of have questions and I guess comment mainly about your public outreach and how that was done, and wondering if you partnered with organizations to get the notice about this hearing. I mean, this public comment opportunity out. I was getting gas, honestly, about at 6:45, and I saw the sandwich poster board and was just interested in, I'm learning and seeing like all this. And I think there's an opportunity to engage more people. Maybe it might be too late for this, but just in general, because there's only 2 of us attendees like on the Zoom. And for example, I feel like if we're talking about adding in like bike lanes and things like that, like perhaps the notice boards and whatnot can be put closer to public transportation, right? Because I had taken the metro just the other day, and maybe if this was by the current bike share and things like that, right? Like that would have made it click like a little bit better as someone who uses public transit and whatnot, and like to learn more about, okay, well, we're going to put like the next stations. Unfortunately, like this was on the way to where I was getting gas and whatnot, right? So I mean, it's ironic that by like when I was using a car, I found out about this, but like when I was actually like walking and perhaps and I was like walking and using public transit, I did not know about the hearing. And so I guess my question kind of is like, what is your process about giving notice about these things? Who do you partner with? And I just want to, I guess, also just kind of give that as a suggestion too, with the sort of placement of the notice boards and how you kind of advertise. This is important information. And because I mean, additionally, also, this has the potential of, you know, lessening like on-street parking and whatnot, especially around the Commons of McLean and everything. And so I think I just kind of want to ask that / give that feedback sort of thing. And I don't know if I have another question, but I'll mute my mic now.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Usually with these repaving meetings, we have just a lot of them to schedule for every district. So we're a little bit constrained in just exactly how much we're able to advertise that outreach. I know the supervisor's office did put something in the newsletter, but that's really great advice for next year to try and make sure we're reaching as many people as possible and advertising these meetings. So thank you.
Yes, I can see the next hand from Sonali Soneji. I'm going to make microphone enable. Yes, Sonali, you can ask the question.
Good evening. This is Sonali Soneji, and I'm with the Tyson's Community Alliance. Hi, Andy. Hi, Hannah. I think we have met before.
Hi, Sonali.
So thanks again for really good presentation. I learned a few new things. As Andy knows, I'm not a highway engineer, so this is interesting. I have a couple of questions, if I may. One is the paving happens just between the curb to curb, right? If it doesn't include the sidewalks, is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
It does not include the sidewalks.
And then my second question is that we, can I ask my second question as well? That's
Sure.
all right. So my second question was about, it seemed like the next cycle for the planning of 2025 is maybe also started or ongoing right now. Is there any kind of public engagement or any way that the Tyson's Community Alliance can get sort of involved with the next set of paving? Because we do have some ability to partner and sort of enhance your program, enhance FCDOT's program. I so basically would love to have some opportunity to provide some feedback at an early stage to see if we can, I mean, we are fully supportive of, expanding bike lanes. And I should say that I also see bike lanes as being useful for other vehicles, scooters, skateboards. We're not particular about how people get around as long as they, do it in an active and sustainable fashion. So yeah, basically wanted to say that we would love to support this program and enhance it if we can. So to let me know how we can help, and also publicizing, public meetings and things. We're happy to send that out as well.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to speak to that one, Andy?
Sure, I can start. And if you have anything to add, please feel free. But you're right, Sonali, we are already starting the planning for the next paving season. And, we would certainly welcome any input, as we do from citizens just every day. Please feel free to reach out. You can reach out to me if you'd like. and share some of that feedback that you all have. I don't know if we're to the point yet where we have a list that we can share with you yet for the next paving season, but we can certainly accept your input and consider that as we develop the list for next year.
Thank you.
Yes, feel free to email me if you'd like to chat about that further, Sonali.
Well, thank you very much.
Now I can see the KNEF. Your microphone is enabled. You can unmute yourself and ask question.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. So if the community opts not to move forward with these proposed modifications to, to add bike lanes and provide the traffic calming along Anderson, what would be the next opportunity? Is it 5 years, 10 years from now? How long would we have to wait if we don't move forward now? How long would we have to wait for this to happen in the future?
If it's implemented through repaving, it would just be the next time the road would get repaved, and that Andy could probably speak to in more detail than me.
Yeah, and the repaving, I mean, it's going to depend on how quickly deterioration of the pavement occurs, which is subject to some of the things that we talked about earlier, the traffic volumes on the roadway. It could be quite a while before a full repaving is done. But that said, there may be an opportunity earlier to do something like what I talked about, the preventative type treatment, like a slurry seal, in which case you're going to have to do restriping at that point anyway. That could be more in the near term, but more than likely you're still talking about a number of years before that would occur. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anyone on? Yeah, I can see the hands up from Donald.
Are you taking feedback on the bike share now or only the paving?
We'll accept feedback on both.
Okay, so for the bike share, I would recommend that it get installed on the commercial side of Anderson Road, not the residential side. Because I feel like from the I'm on the website, from like the image that's there, I'm trying, there's you don't have the map for that one, but I'm going off memory. I was just there 30 minutes ago getting gas. We were talking about all the traffic calming and whatnot. People who are turning, if they're driving on McGarity Road and they do a right-hand turn on Anderson Road, like they don't have to they can do it like on a red light, right? And so I feel like if people are like getting on and off bikes, and it's kind of like right there, that's a little bit unsafer from people who might just be doing a right turn on red from McGarity Road. So I think if it was more on the side where the Safeway and the commercial side of that street is, that might be better for sort of getting on the bikes on and off and things like that. That's my comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. So we did look into that side, but the stations are solar powered and there wasn't enough solar access on that side because of the big trees that are blocking it. But we did identify another site a little bit farther down the road that's a little bit more visible. So that's also an option if it seems like sight distance is going to be an issue coming around that turn.
Yeah, thank you. I cannot see more hands up. If anyone want to ask any more questions or comments.
I think the only thing that I wanted to add, Manesh, is that if anybody would like to receive the newsletter that you referenced earlier, perhaps the best way to get that information, since the chat is disabled, is just to go ahead and reach out to all of you. That way, if they have more specific questions, they can ask you that, and then feel free to pass those along to my email or to any of the staff with Supervisor Palchik's office. And that way we can help facilitate better communication, more communication, and other methods of communication with the residents. We're always eager to have more people sign up for our newsletter and just communicate with them on what's going on in their neighborhoods.
Absolutely, thank you. Oh, and then we can go to Donald one more time.
Well, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but Mr. Farr, are you receiving feedback as well too from this meeting?
Indirectly, yes. We'll get basically information from the staff regarding what they hear. We're here to sort of listen to resident concerns as well. And if we report this back to the supervisor, we usually have a discussion about any concerns.
Well, I was just going to say, I just have feedback about the newsletter if you'd be willing to hear it, or I can do it in a different forum. I don't know if this is the appropriate forum for that.
Do that in a different format, because this really is, you know, a meeting to discuss the paving, but we're more than happy to hear that if you wanted to reach out using the links and feedback options on the newsletter itself.
But yes, any feedback is going to be passed along to the supervisor's office, as well as the survey responses. Right, and then Ken.
Sure, thank you. One other quick question. I'm sure you maybe you already answered this. So what is the timeline for this to happen? Assuming you move forward with any of this, what's the timeline for, you know, the restriping and the bike station, or the Capitol bike share station?
So I can actually, I'll let Andy start with the repaving, and then I'll move on to the Capitol bike share, because that will depend on when the road is repaved.
Yeah, so and Hannah, I haven't been tracking this particular one as far as where it's at in the process with our staff, but I assume that it is going to follow in a subsequent paving year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the earliest would likely be 2025, assuming that the appropriate analyses and everything behind that are completed in time for that.
Yeah, so the bike share station would follow whenever the road is repaved. So we're thinking, yeah, likely 2025, early 2025.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I can see the Donald hand is still off. Do you have any more question, Donald? Okay. So it's look like we don't have any more question, and we don't have any person in the phone. Let me fix this one. So this concludes the question and answer session for today. As a reminder, feedback can be submitted until April 23rd, 2024 using the following channels. Submit a survey at https://publicinput.com/i4805, or you can leave recorded comment at 703-890-5898, project code 1768, or mail written comment to YPCDOT, attention Jack Desardo, Active Transportation Section 4050, Legato Road, Suite 400, Fairfax, Virginia 22033. For more information on repaving program or to review the proposed stripping project for your district, visit the project web page at https://www.fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/2024-paving-and-restriping-program. I hope it's done. Hannah and Andy, do you have any more?
No, nothing else to add, but thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to hearing everyone's feedback. Have a great evening, everyone.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you. This concludes our meeting on 2024 repaving program. A recording of the meeting will be available on the project webpage in the next day or so. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time and participation. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.